Hello and welcome to Worst Quality Crab, a podcast of Asian American stories and recipes from best quality hearts. I'm your host, Freesia Lee. Joining me as always is my husband and producer, Sam.
Hello.
This episode, we are joined by no one. We are doing a special little combo happy AANHPI episode, and we are also doing a happy anniversary episode. We are coming up on 1 year, which is kind of wild to us. Sam, can you believe it's been a year?
No, it hasn't really felt like that much time to me.
Did you think we would make it a year?
I thought we would make it a year. I don't know. Every episode feels kind of new to me. So there's like a freshness to it. So it doesn't feel like it's accumulating time. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. On the one hand, I thought we would make it a year, and I feel like we're going to do this for 10 more years. And then at the same time, when we first started, we launched the first 3. And then I was like, oh no, we're not done. We have to keep doing this. But we managed to.
Yes.
I guess all that to say, like this episode, we're just going to talk about what the year has been like, what we've learned, what some highlights have been, just a little inside podcast baseball, I guess, whatever that's called.
It's our annual retrospective.
Oh, yes. It's our annual retro. We're going to review our KPIs.
Performance review.
It's our performance review. Do we get a merit increase?
Self-reflections.
Oh, yeah.
I always gave myself a 5 out of 5 on those because why not?
Yeah. If you're not going to give yourself a 5 out of 5, who will? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of which, go rate us 5 stars. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess all that to say, if you were here for a guest, sorry, try again next time. This one is just us doing goofs for goofing.
Also, please react and leave messages and talk to us because we actually have no idea. like we'll keep doing what we want to do, but we are also open to input. So if you see us on Instagram and you have some comments on any particular episode or want to message us or email us, please do that. I think that's one thing that I feel like is missing for me is like a kind of interaction with our audience. I'd like to see a little bit more of that if y'all would indulge.
It's interesting that you say that because I feel similarly. And I think when I first conceived of this and when we started it, a big thing that I was hoping to create was a sense of community and a place where people could like come and find themselves and find each other and kind of like, see themselves in someone else's story and also just like learn about other diverse stories that are within the larger community. And I was really not certain like if that was really achievable through a podcast. Like I've seen it in other podcast communities and there's, meetups and Facebook groups and whatever. But I was like, I don't think that's necessarily where we're at. But recently someone said to me that they had like listened to, I think it was actually the most recent one, Brian's. Thank you, Brian. And they were like, oh yeah, listening feels like community. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that was really affirming to me because I guess we're doing it, even if we can't see it. So I really appreciated that. If that feels like you, listener, please tell us so we know. Please, thank you. But it was just good to kind of know that this idea that we'd had so long ago was actually working. And like, that listener lives also in the city and Brian lives in the city. Like they could potentially meet. We could actually get them to meet and hang out. I don't know when. But just the idea that this listener who's also a friend was like feeling more a part of something just from our show was like very nice to hear.
Yeah. Give us some ideas. Like, who you guys want to do some meet and greets?
Yeah. All that to say, we want more of that, please.
On the one hand, like if we keep doing this show and there is no response, like that's mostly fine with me. I still get something out of it and I don't necessarily need community response, I guess. But if there is that out there, it would be nice to hear.
Yeah, this kind of leads me to like, is this what we expected when we started overall? Is this what you expected?
I expected even less, actually. Like, I expected it to just be like shouting out into the void and like maybe 5 people listening and it not really catching on much at all. So
Same.
I think anything beyond like 5 downloads for
Yeah.
me was like, oh
Yes.
wow, this is becoming something. This is a thing.
Yeah. I fully was like, if we could get 10 listeners,
Mhm.
huzzah.
Yeah.
And to have exceeded that has been really surprising
hmm
and really nice. I would still like more. So, listeners, tell your friends, please. We would like to add zeros to these counts.
hmm
Um,
I think also part of it for me is that like I work from home 5 days a week at my day job, and I don't really interact with anyone besides my kids, Freesia, you,
yeah.
maybe like a handful of other parents that I might see every once in a while, and like friends every once in a while. But like I think with you working 3 days a week at a place where a lot of your coworkers also listen to the show and talk about it with you, I think I'm kind of missing that aspect of it. And I'm just like,
Mm,
oh, that's an interesting thing to be a part of.
yeah. It's funny you say that because I think one of the things that has been surprising for me is that it has caught on in my workplace. And like I sort of, we started the podcast before I started the job. And when I started, I was like, oh yeah, and I have this little podcast. And it was actually other people in my office who were like, she has a podcast. You should listen. And the way that that has sort of spread among certain divisions of our office has been really interesting to me. And I've really enjoyed it because we've gotten some really great guests from it. But I just had not expected that at all when I started the role. And I was
Mhm,
sort of like, I will talk about it quietly, I guess.
mhm.
And then other people became very loud PR voices for me in that space, which was real fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Also, thank you, Melanie. You are patient zero on that one. Still invited on the show, always.
What else has been surprising to you in making the show?
One thing that's been surprising to me is perfect strangers have found us on Instagram or, like someone kind of network has posted a thing and then someone has found us and have like seemingly gotten really into the show where like they have actually DM'd us
Mhm,
and said really nice things. And again, that is wild because, you know, like we said, we expected like maybe 5 to 10 listeners and assumed all of them were just like first person connections. So to know that people who don't know us directly and like maybe follow someone that we had on as a guest, but don't necessarily know them either, are listening is like pretty wild to me. And then also for like what very, very little social media we do and like little engagement. I'll meet people and I'll be like, oh yeah, I have this podcast and like I follow you or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, I recognize that name.
mhm.
That's so cool. And I'm like, oh, weird, like awesome, but just very strange. I think also because and this is like totally a me thing, but I find that people either like remember me a lot or like do not remember that we ever met at all.
Hmm.
So I kind of assume the same about our podcast. And so when someone's like, I remember you, I'm like, oh, wait, what? You do? Because usually people forget me, which is fine. So it's been funny with the show. And they're like, I know that name.
Mhm,
I think another thing that's like not surprising, but is always very fulfilling in the moment
mhm.
is when someone hears the name and they like recognize the Joyla Club reference. And they're like, oh, yay. And I was like, oh, we found a person. You are one of us. Come listen to all the episodes. Come on the show. Come into our world. You are one with us.
I think a surprising thing for me is everyone who's like, "Oh, you guys have good podcast voices?"
Yes.
You know, there's always that phenomenon of like you yourself disliking the sound of your own voice. in recordings and like not wanting to listen to recordings of your own voice. And I don't know if I've gotten used to it, or I don't think I actually felt that way at all very much.
Oh.
I just like hearing myself talk all the time. But then again, I guess I don't really talk that much normally to begin with.
Yeah, how lovely for you that you didn't have to just cringe through your own voice for the first 1 to infinite episodes.
Yeah.
But I do understand that insofar as, like, I for sure I think even before we started, I was like, "Oh my god, I would have to listen to my own voice," and every time I've heard it, my immediate thought is always just, "That's what people hear? Like, you have to listen to this? I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. How can I help? Stop talking," is the answer. And then a couple of people who are actually professionals in like a voice and sound space have been like, "No, no, you're fine." So that was really helpful. Thank you, those friends. But yeah, after a few episodes, like having to listen to our previews before we publish, inside, haha, we like listen to it and our guest does first and then we release it, have really like desensitized me to me. And then on the episodes where like I'm a little bit sick or like have a cold, I'm like, "Oh, who's that? I don't know." And it's fine. And then I actually like this is terrible. I don't know, this feels terrible to say, but I I like listening to our show, like, it's fun. I like listening to our guests talk even though I've already had the conversation with them.
Yeah, same.
But they're always like, our guests are so good and they're so insightful and they have such fun stories and such, like, sweet and tender and meaningful things to say that it's nice to listen back even if I am subjected to myself in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like maybe as the editor, I probably listen to the shows the most out of anyone
Mhm.
in the world. Like I listen to them pretty much over and over just for the editing aspect of it. And I don't get tired of it.
I am always surprised, like, when I go to listen to it, that I'm like, "Oh, okay, that like, we did that, that was nice." And then I listen, I'm like, "Oh, no, that was actually really fun." And it's I can listen I've actually listened to a couple episodes, like, 2 or 3 times, a little bit accidentally, don't ask. They're delayed every time. Always good.
And I guess a fun fact for the first maybe 10 episodes, we still had baby Gemma at home. And usually when we recorded those episodes, it would be in the middle of her nap time and morning nap time, usually.
Mhm.
And I think, you could hear her on some of the recordings. But after a while, I would have to just be on the show, but also like turn off all the lights and then be quiet because I'd be holding her because
Mhm.
that's how she would go to sleep. And like Frisia's in her crib room, and like you can't really just put her back down. She probably wouldn't sleep anyway. So a lot of the early episodes, I kind of didn't talk as much because I was just kind of sitting back and holding the baby.
Yes, that is true.
And I think the funny thing is, I guess I usually don't really talk that much anyway on the show. Like now that I don't have to hold her while she naps, like I'm not sure if it makes a big difference in terms of frequency of me talking.
I think historically in our relationship, I am the one that won't shut up. So this is all very on brand for us as a couple and as humans.
That's right.
But you're welcome to talk anytime, Sam.
Yeah.
You just have to tell me to shut up. It's fine.
Also, a lot of times, like either the guest gets to what I was curious about, or like you asked the question I had in my mind anyway.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's all good.
What have been like standouts for you in terms of dishes, stories, anecdotes?
The one standout episode that I keep thinking about is Christian's Mapo Tofu episode, just because he had such a unique experience growing up. And we usually have a guest questionnaire, and the guest fills it out. And we have an idea of what we will talk about or what the backstory is about the dish. But I feel like on that episode, it really kind of unfolded before our eyes.
Mhm.
And it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience maybe for Christian growing up, but it was nice to hear that, he kind of got to a place where he accepted it.
Mhm.
How about you?
Oh, so many. I don't know that there's like a singular episode that is like a favorite or anything. I think there are moments in ones that like really stick out for me or just sort of like ideas. I think one that, I've listened to a couple times, again, accidentally, is Nicole Lugtuz, and she talks about Tanola.
Hmm.
And I think what was so interesting about her episode for me was kind of realizing after the fact that like it was very wholesome.
Oh, yes.
In some of the episodes, we like talk about like, oh, this shitty thing in childhood and this like kind of terrible core memory or whatever. And all
Yeah.
of hers was very positive. It was very cute. Her parents sound adorable.
Hmm.
And it was actually just like really heartwarming to, have an episode like that. And in some ways, it was interesting for me to think about her parents and how we parent and like what are the things that we could be doing today that our kids might talk about on a podcast in 25 years
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
whatever. So that was really nice. I think another one that stands out for me was Haney's episode
Hmm.
talking about Sujubi, and not so much about Sujubi, but just, we talked about the idea of narrative plentitude and just, having more Asian stories so that each one in some ways matters a little bit less. Like not everything is so heavy because there are enough of them and there's diversity and not every one thing has to like represent everything.
Yeah.
And that really resonated for me. And I was like, oh yes, that is, essentially why we do the show, or
Hmm.
one of the reasons why we do the show. And so, it was nice to hear that and think about it from that lens. And, honestly, like I wasn't thinking about stopping at the time or anything, but it was just like a nice kind of thing to propel me forward and want to like keep on going. Cause I think we were also like coming into holidays and stuff.
Hmm.
And it was looking to be like a little bit of a struggle
Hmm.
just logistically. So that was like really nice to just like keep us keeping on.
I think another one that stood out to me was Ken's Thanksgiving stuffing episode,
Oh yeah, why?
just because it felt very John Hughes, John Candy ish. I think it might have been the Midwestern Chicago accent. It just,
Yes.
and as holiday, it just felt very like
And 80s.
an 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just had that nostalgic vibe for me. It felt very homey.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I could probably like be nostalgic for all of our episodes in some way.
Yeah. I think the two shows where we had two guests, Bam Fight and Mom's Chicken,
Mm-hmm.
Margot and Jin, and Deanna and Rob, those were really fun. And I would like to do more of those, just have multiple guests.
I would also like to do more of those. I have been pitching a few people, don't worry.
Awesome.
Listeners, if you would like to come on with a friend or partner or sibling, we would love to have you. Just put that out there. We've yet to do a partners episode.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'm angling for a mother and son, like a Gen Z son and a little bit older than us mom. If you know who you are, Sabrina and Kyle, I don't think you listen to our show yet. You will someday. And then you'll hear this and it'll be weird, but you'll have already come on. It'll be great. Just putting that out in the universe.
Like Babe Ruth calling the shot.
Mm-hmm. I'm Babe Ruth of podcasting right now. I think like what is always true, no matter the person, no matter the dish, no matter the story, it's really nice to talk to different people. And, there are moments where we'll be like, oh, this reminds me of something another guest said, or this reminds me of this other guest experience. But they're all been so varied and so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And, in some cases, like we've had friends on who've known each other for a very long time and their upbringings were still very different. Or we have people that sort of check the same demographic boxes of like age, ethnicity, gender, whatever, and their stories could not be more different. And that's just been really fascinating for me and really fun to sort of be the shepherd of those stories. and I can't wait to do more of it.
Same.
I think what's been fun for me, and I don't know about you, but like, we've both had coworkers come on the show,
Mhm.
and it's been really nice to get to know them outside of the workplace and outside of their roles.
Mhm.
We've actually gotten to get to meet and know each other's coworkers.
Yeah.
That's been fun.
Mhm.
Like, I'd heard about Sean, but now I know Sean. What's up, Sean?
Yeah. It's definitely cool to be like, I think this person's cool. And then I think I want to talk to them. And then having them on the show and being like, yes, this is great.
Yeah, totally. What do you hope for our future?
I hope to keep doing this. I enjoy it. I was talking to Brian the other day and he asked me, like, oh, you guys have done like 20 shows. Like, what's different? And I was like, it's still very exciting and fresh for me. And like aside from it becoming like a little bit easier to do, it's still very exciting to go on this journey. And in a way, I hope it never ends.
Same. I mean, honestly, same. There's a part of me that's like, oh, I would do this every day if we could do this every day. Not realistic by
Hmm.
any stretch, but it does feel fresh every time.
Yeah.
Every time we start, I'm always like, oh, is it time? Do we go? Is now record now? Okay. Someday I'll get over that and I'll get better about it. But it is, we never know what a guest is going to say. Even when we think we know, we don't. Even
Mhm.
having had very, very close friends come on the show, I have learned things about them in the moment. And I would really like to keep doing that. And we would really like to keep telling more people's stories and just have there be greater awareness of Asian foods, I guess. But surprise, this isn't really a food show. It's really, Asian stories and the experience of growing up Asian in America through the lens of food. But also, I do like when we get new recipes. Some of them have become actual in the rotation and we make and will make again. So that's been nice too. Is this the time where we soft launch the idea of buy me a coffee?
Yes.
So I think that we are going to try a buy me a coffee and just kind of see what happens. It's clearly not enough for either of us to quit our day jobs. But if enough people bought us a few coffees, one, my computer's very old and it bulges at the bottom in a way that it's not supposed to. So that's very questionable. But I think actually what we really want to do is get some like small swag made, do like a few runs of stickers. Someone at work floated a t-shirt idea to me.
Mhm.
So, if there was enough interest, we would definitely like to take that up.
Mhm.
So I will get that set up, whatever that takes and entails. And we'll probably share it out on socials, our website, whatever.
Mhm.
And then also in this AANHPI / our anniversary month / also our wedding anniversary.
Mhm.
Fun fact, listeners, 4 years ago on our anniversary, we got a Peloton, coincidentally. Last year, basically on our anniversary or the day after, we launched this show. So we stopped getting gifts, but here's where we're at. We just get weird big things around our anniversary to celebrate all of that.
They're intertwined so I don't forget one or the other.
Yes, exactly.
Or
Um,
it helps me remember.
I mean, I think only I remember the like Peloton on our anniversary thing because I was so excited about it, but it does help. I think also we were thinking that we would like to give a gift for these very special occasions. And so we don't know what the box entails yet, but probably some of our fave foods, Asian, maybe sauces that we've talked about, or things that have come up on the show, plus a few probably like food stickers and other items from some local makers that are new friends and that we're just fans of. Specifics still to come, but like it'll be a fun little box.
Mhm.
And I don't really know how to give that away, but we're thinking maybe like leave us a review wherever you're listening to this.
Yeah, join the crab club
Join the crab club
to get a crab crate.
crab crate. Oh, that's a good one. Get a crab crate. Is that the boxes, the cages that they catch the crabs in, though? Like the crab fishermen throw out the boxes and they,
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
We'll go to Fisherman's Wharf and ask those guys, what do you call these?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll figure it out in some Instagram post or something, but probably something along the lines of leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and be entered to win. And we'll mail it to you. Or if you live close, we'll drop it off.
And if it's not a lot of people, we'll just give it to you. We don't care.
Yeah, also that. If it's 2 people, I'll make 2 boxes. It's fine. I like
Yeah.
giving gifts. Oh, maybe we just do 2 boxes anyway. Aha! Your odds of winning have just doubled. That's not how math works.
Mm-hmm.
2 boxes. Sure.
I don't even know what's going in these boxes.
I don't know. Probably like
An omsom noodle.
an omsom, yes. Maple spam that we talked about on the spam episode. It's hard to get. Maybe some like Menman stickers that I'm obsessed with.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of chili crisp.
Let's keep it non-spicy.
Nah.
Content wise.
From TBD brand of chili crisp.
Non-major conglomerate.
Non-conglomerate. Not a crunch, but a crisp.
Mm-hmm. Non-litigation happy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
This is a mild episode.
Moving on.
I don't know. It'll be a fun box. It'll be a box that I would be happy to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And cute. Anyway, I think they've probably heard us ramble on now long enough. Yeah.
Yes.
I think we've gone on longer than we anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Any last thing before we wrap this one up?
I guess I would like to let people know that the intro and outro music is, I made that.
Yes, you did. And it's very good. And people like it.
Thank you.
People have told me they like it.
I love it. Sometimes I listen to the episodes just to listen to the music.
Nice. I think my last thing is this has been a pleasure to do with you.
Yes.
It's been a fun project for us old married people.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, a friend of ours was like, that could really turn out terribly for the 2 of you. And so far, so good. I think it's all going in the right direction. So I'm glad that this did not tear us apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I was thinking about this last night, maybe. Like, I feel like all I've ever wanted to do was to collaborate with people on a creative endeavor where all of us are in it equally, like are enthusiastic about it equally. And this is that thing for me right now. And I'm glad to be doing it with you.
Me too. That sounded sarcastic. It wasn't. I meant it.
Me too.
Me too.
Really.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, listeners at home. Clearly, there's no recipe. We barely mentioned food. But if you are into this, meaning the podcast, not necessarily this episode, but thank you for sticking with us through this one. Like we said, rate us, review us. You might get a swag box out of it. Share us with your friends. We would love to be reaching more people, not for our own egos, but because, people actually seem to find something in this show and get something out of it that has literally nothing to do with us. And we just really want that for more people to be able to see themselves in these stories and these recipes and just sort of like understand their own community in new ways. So if you could share, that would be great. And, we'll talk to you next time, and there will be a guest, so you don't have to listen to Sam and I prattle on for quite as long.
Yes.
Oh, but if you do want to engage with us, you can find us at worstqualitycrab.com or on Instagram at worstqualitycrab. And, to Sam's point, if you would like to email us, you can do that. It's worstqualitycrabpod@gmail.com. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.